My dad wants me to pay back my child support, by user NiceI3391. I know this is a topic that was already discussed. I'm just looking for advice for a good comeback. My dad, 59, recently started talking about that now that I'm earning more, that I would be able to pay back the child support he paid over the years. It started small with comments like, "You are going to need a big income to pay back the child support." He asked me more than once how much I'm currently earning and always seemed disappointed that I didn't earn more. He loves to tell me this on days like my birthdays and only when my BF is in the same room/in the car. My relationship to my dad has always been a bit strained. It started when I turned 18. He wanted to stop my child support even though I was still in school and even though a court made it very clear he was still obligated. He didn't talk to me for 2 years. I have to say I won't go NC. I'm already LC and most of our contact is initiated by him. I still feel bothered and sometimes even angry when he brings it up, but I'm never able to actually give him a good answer. Usually I try to ignore it or just fake chuckle. Do any of you have a good response to that kind of expectation without losing the only family I have left? My only grandma would probably stop talking to me if I go NC. Edit. Thank you so much for all your comments. I made the post after a long, hard day, and TBH just remembered I made the post. You guys made my day. I won't use any of the more hateful ones, but you guys really helped me to gain some outside perspective. Thank you so much. Neighbors think their kids are entitled to break into my yard, by user HalfAmeerkat. For context, I have 4 chickens who live in a cozy coop at the end of my back garden. One of them, Whiskey, has survived a fox attack, is 8 years old and still laying eggs, and we affectionately refer to her as our guard chicken or the snitch because she will scream for us if any intruders, usually squirrels, enter our yard or any of the other chickens escape. It was a nice, sunny Sunday morning and I had my friends over for brunch when I hear Whiskey screaming and look out the window to see the neighbor's kid crouched down next to my chicken coop. Me, "Hey, what are you doing?" Kid, "I'm just getting my ball back." Holding 2 balls. Me, "Wah, get out of my garden." Kid, "That's not very nice." Me, "Well, it's not very nice to break into other people's gardens." At this point he climbs back into his garden through a gap in the fence at the very back of the garden. Meanwhile I've gone to knock on their front door to speak to their parents, assuming that they must not know this was happening. Me, "Hi, did you know your son was breaking into our garden?" Dad, immediately yelling, "Is it okay, what you said to my son?" Me, "What, telling him he can't break into our property?" Dad, "He's just a kid, it's okay for him to do that." Me, No, legally he can't. I don't want random kids messing about with my chickens." Dad, "You threatened my kid. You swore at him." Me, "I never threatened him, I just wanted him off my property." Dad, "It's fine for kids to do that." You know what, I don't have to listen to this, goes to slam the door in my face but stops when I step forward onto their doorstep, but not into their house. Me, "How would you like it if I broke into your garden?" Dad, "They're kids, it's okay. You're threatening them. Call the police." At this point my unfortunate tendency to cry when I'm angry started to get the better of me, so I stepped back and yelled that I wanted to speak to the police actually because I had done nothing wrong, then went back into my house. I did end up calling the non-emergency line and the operator I spoke to reassured me that they were definitely not entitled to break in, kids or not, and even if I swore at them, I was unsure because I do swear a lot in general without even noticing, but my friends who witnessed the whole thing assured me that I hadn't broken any laws. So now we have to fix the fence gap and hope that the unhinged adult man living next door who thinks it's perfectly fine to wander onto people's yard without permission doesn't decide to do that again himself. I'm starting to doubt that this was the first time the kids had broken in, as Whiskey had been screaming all day Saturday, much more than she would for a squirrel or bird, but I couldn't see anything when I checked. Is it girly to be clean, fellas? By user Schmidget12. So, I'm 14, and as a dude, I have a morning routine of taking a shower, deodorant, etc. My dad wondered what I do for my morning routine because my mom's drives me to school, not my dad, so I explained my routine to my dad. 1. Taking a shower. 2. Put on deodorant. 3. Brush my teeth. 4. Get dressed. And he responded by saying, "Wow, what kind of girly ass behavior is that?" So, my final question is it girly to be clean, fellas? Sorry if this isn't the right sub, couldn't find a better one. My, F30, Friend's mom tried to get my daughter deported so I would date her son, by Userania95. This is going to be a long story, but I feel it's important to cover the background so that you have an idea of how it built up to this. I, F30, am a single mom to a mixed-race 3-year-old daughter as I'm white, but my daughter's father is a New Zealand Maori, the indigenous people of NZ, who I met and briefly dated while he did his training and worked here in the States. He and I are not together anymore, and he's not involved in our daughter's life as he moved back to NZ, but I do have some contact with his parents as my daughter is their only grandchild, and I do feel it's good for my daughter to know her Maori culture and paternal grandparents as well. Anyway, I come from a well-off, upper-middle-class family, and my friend Kate, F29, is from a low-income, working-class family from West Virginia. We met in college, are close, and Kate is a genuinely nice and kind person but is also low contact with her toxic family, which consist of her stepmom Pam, her stepbrother Kyle, M26, and dad. Pam is on disability. Kate's dad is a truck driver, and according to Kate, her stepbrother Kyle apparently makes women feel uncomfortable, can't hold a job, doesn't really interact with others outside the internet, has this fantasy about having a trad wife, and has very racist and misogynistic views as well. Last year, my other friend Rachel, F30, along with some of our friends hosted an engagement party for Kate and her boyfriend Jack, M34, at my family's vacation home in the Catskills. It was just supposed to be us, our other friends and some of our colleagues from the museum, but apparently when Kate mentioned it to her dad, Kate's stepmom Pam demanded that we let them attend, and after some back and forth, we decided to just let them come, but I opted to not formally send them an invite. Instead I just told Kate that they can come if they want. During the party, Pam and Kyle seemed rather out of place as they couldn't really hold a conversation with anyone. When anyone tried to talk about her stepdaughter Kate and her fiancé Jack, the ones who this party was to celebrate, Pam would somehow try to make it about her son Kyle. Pam kept trying to talk up her son Kyle to me, Rachel and some of the other girls in the party, and they complained about us having Taylor Swift playing in the background, with Kyle calling it feminist trash. Despite me and Kate being fans of her and this being my family's house. Later, while I was chatting with our former college professor, Kyle came up to me, tried chatting with me, asking me questions, and flirting with me. I tried being polite, answering his questions with one-word or one-sentence answers, but when he then asked me out on a date, I told him I couldn't as I do have my job and my daughter to look after. Long story short, I started shouting at him, telling them, Kyle and his mom, to leave, warning that I'd call the sheriff's office if they didn't, after Kyle said something along the lines of I would be perfect for him if I didn't have my half-breed daughter, his words, and that if I wanted to be with him, I'd have to put my daughter up for adoption or something. Pam then joined in, saying something along the lines of how dare you talk to my son like that, demanding that I give her son a chance, etc., and they eventually left after our other friends and guests started chewing them out, calling them trash, and Rachel did call law enforcement. Kate did profusely apologize for her stepmom and stepbrother's behavior, but I assured her that I don't blame her as she did warn me about them. I just didn't think they'd be this horrid. Over the next year or so, Pam did message me on Facebook a few times saying things like how dare you talk to my son like that, you people think you're too good for us, complaining that we've previously never invited her or her son to anything. Again, I'm friends with Kate, not her stepmom or stepbrother, etc., and that I should apologize to and go on a date with her son. I reminded her that her son is a coddled high school dropout, who can't hold a job, Pam herself is unemployed, her son is a racist and misogynistic bum, and her family, except Kate, is trash. While I actually do have a well-paying job, a master's degree, I do not share the toxic views of her or her son, and that I'm more than capable of supporting myself, something neither her or her son could do. I then blocked Pam. It slipped my mind to also block Kyle, keep this in mind for later, and I did tell Kate and the others in our friend group of this. Kate apologized for her stepmother again and revealed that her stepmom and Kyle have been low-key stalking me and Rachel, looking at our posts on Instagram and TikTok, and watching videos we post of us going on family boat trips, eating out at restaurants, and Pam apparently being envious of my family's 2023 Christmas dinner party. Because of this, Pam has been telling Kate of how she believes that she deserves the life me and Rachel live, hence why Pam has trying to pressure Kate to hook Kyle up with either me or Rachel, to which Kate has repeatedly refused to do so. The engagement party we held for Kate was back in July 2024, and between then and a few days ago, I haven't heard from them. However, last weekend, I was with my daughter at my family's home in the Upper East Side when ICE agents showed up at my door, because apparently someone reported my daughter as being an illegal immigrant. Firstly, I called my grandpa's law firm, and they sent a couple of lawyers to our family home, and I explained to the agents that my daughter's dad may be a foreign national but I, an American, am her bio mother and my daughter was born in Boston, hence she's a US citizen. I'm not going to get into how the interaction with ICE went as it was stressful and my grandpa's lawyers mostly handled it, but long story short, turns out Kate's stepmom and stepbrother reported my daughter to ICE to try and get my daughter deported, in hopes that if my daughter was gone, I'd somehow be willing to go out with Kyle. According to Kate, she found out that her stepmom just created another account, and given the fact I forgot to block Kyle as well, he was still able to see my posts. They know my daughter is a US citizen as she was born here. Kate herself told them that in the past, but according to Kate, they think it's disgusting for me to have a mixed-race child and they wanted to hook up with Kyle so they can be included in my family's social events, trips on my dad's yacht, and live the life they think they deserve. That said, they also think that if they somehow get my daughter out of the way, I could start fresh with Kyle. Kate also mentioned that going forward, she'll be going NC with her stepmom and stepbrother, as she and Jack did not want her stepmom trying to interfere with or dictate their married life, as they as a couple have had problems with her Pam before. Also, Kate said she will testify in court against her stepmom and stepbrother if it comes to that. Because of this, my grandpa, dad, our family's lawyers, and I agree that it's best we take them to court. If anything changes, I'll try to keep you posted. Additional info number 1 for those who asked in my DMs. Yes, unfortunately Kate did come from a toxic household as her stepbrother was an entitled golden child who was coddled by his mom. Pam is a controlling and psychologically abusive person who feels the need to control everyone, and Kate's dad is barely around, nor does he seem interested in being involved with his family. That said, Kate's dad has pretty much been absent for most of the abuse Kate's been dealing with during her teenage years, and when Kate did tell her dad, he'd just brush it off. That is how I understood her family's situation to be. That's why Kate up until this past weekend was only low contact with her family, but after the incident of Kyle and Pam stalking me and Rachel, Kate and her fiancé Jack have decided to finally go NC with Pam and Kyle, as they really don't want their toxicity in their life going forward, and especially don't want Pam around any future kids Kate and Jack may have. Additional info number 2 for those who asked in my DMs. Despite the engagement party being back in July 2024, Kate and Jack aren't actually married yet. They were supposed to get married on December 2024, but due to Jack's injury and Kate being laid off from her government job, they had to push the wedding back to December this year. That's why I'm still referring to Jack as Kate's fiancé. Entitled Mother Demand I give my hoodie to her because her son is scared, by user Cuber with glasses. So, I'm a teenager from Australia, and so far, life's been going well. I usually help my dad with his business, and I get paid for it. With that money, I decided to buy a hoodie related to my favorite show, Murder Drones. It took a week to arrive, and I absolutely loved it. I don't wear it out much, but it's definitely my favorite hoodie. Anyway, just a few days ago, I was at a shopping center with my mom and sister. My mom and sister went off to do some shopping while I stayed behind to grab food for them. This is where the story starts. Now, since people often refer to entitled parents as EPS, I'll call her that 'cause why not, lol. I was waiting for my order at a Mexican restaurant, GYG for any Aussies reading this, when I felt someone tap me on the back. I turned around to see a woman, EP, in her 30s and her son, who looked to be about 11 years old. The boy looked kind of embarrassed or worried, but I couldn't tell for sure. EP started talking to me about my hoodie. She said her son was scared of it, but when I looked at him, he didn't seem scared at all. In fact, he looked fine. I responded, sure, I'll take it off, but she didn't just want me to remove it. She actually asked me to give it to her because her husband is a businessman, which, for some reason, she thought made her entitled to my hoodie. I told her no, straight up. That's when she started acting like I owed her the world. I paid $130 for the hoodie, including shipping, which is almost the same amount my dad pays me for helping out with his business each week. I was getting a bit frustrated, especially since people were starting to notice what was happening, and things got really awkward. She began verbally harassing me, calling me a racist and saying stuff about my height and my glasses. She even tried to physically grab my hair while I was getting my food. That's when I really started to lose it. I don't like being rude to strangers. I try to stay humble and respectful, but this woman made me really uncomfortable. Instead of calmly telling her to stop, I made the mistake of calling her a slur, which I regret. That set her off even more, and she started trying to grab my hoodie. At this point, Security had to get involved. Moral of the story? Just because your husband owns something, doesn't mean you're automatically entitled to everything. Anyway, I'm fine now, and I talked to my parents about the whole situation. I expected it to be chaotic, but no, just some boring argument where some lady starts whining over a hoodie. Side note, I think she might have been kicked out of the shopping center. Turns out, her son actually said my hoodie looked cool, and instead of asking me where I got it, she just tried to grab it. Another side note, here's the link to my hoodie, CYN hoodie. I got it for $90, but now it's increased by $11. Also shout out to Apple Intelligence for helping me out write this, cause why not ICBA editing shit.